It's been a weekend of bizarre decisions from Epic, a surprise Telltale Games revival, then encouraging future plans from CD Projekt Red, an absolute stack of people playing Astral Chain, so stay tuned for all of that plus more in today's roundup, which also has a special news segment. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Roundup, our twice per week gaming show. As per always, be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help us out in this time where YouTube is not really favouring the independent news. And with that, let's dive straight into the content. Another day, another story about the Epic Games Store. That's pretty much how things have been going. You might be wondering, well, what could it be this time? Well, an update published over the weekend gave us a bit of an insight into Epic's long-term plans for their marketplace, and it does make for some rather bleak reading. So, the update relates to the Epic Store's Trello roadmap, which is the method that they're using to give customers a time frame in which they can expect new features, that'll be added to the store. Now, in it, Epic states that the roadmap is, quote, not fulfilling the goal they set when it was introduced. The update then goes on to say this: the goal for the Trello roadmap was to provide visibility into the development cycle for the store's more player-centric feature set, but the update says that they've ultimately missed the mark on that when it comes to accurately reporting the timelines for the actual implementation of those features, which very much is the case. Now, in an effort to rectify these delays, Epic have opted to, well, just remove delivery time from the roadmap. Yes, you heard it right, rather than endeavoring to actually meet their projected delivery dates or maybe giving themselves a more realistic time frame for development to roll out those new features, they instead are just not going to acknowledge planned delivery dates from now on. Now, on top of being contrary to the store's self-proclaimed dedication to providing transparency, this seems to be an incredibly apathetic move on the part of Epic, and it's one that, has been met with a lot of derision and ridicule. That people are mocking Epic for this, I think, is rather understandable, as their method for, avoiding missed deadlines has just been to avoid mentioning deadlines in the first place, which, is quite funny and a little bit silly when you think about it. Now, of course, the reason why this is an issue is because the store is missing many features, and people are, kind of being forced onto it through exclusives. Things like cloud saves that kind of barely work and are barely there for any games. Shopping carts not being there to the point where people can purchase multiple games in a row and actually have their account flagged for suspicious purchases because of the back-to-back purchases, which is just a little bit silly indeed, and not something you want to have on your storefront. Epic absolutely do need to improve their feature set, and this is obviously not a good sign. Now, while Epic often missed its own projected deadlines for the delivery of new features, even a vague deadline at least gave the player base some confidence that the new features were on their way and were actually being developed. Under the new roadmap, we're not going to see missed deadlines. We're not going to have as much of an indication about features. They did have a throwaway sentence at the bottom of the statement mentioning that they will publish a new Trello update every time a new feature is added, but it seems like that's pretty much all the insight we're getting into their workflow. And this really prompts the question: if transparency has gone out the window for Epic, what next? They certainly are not handling this well, and it could be two things. This could just be Epic doubling down and not really caring about what people think. It could also just be the development process is messy, and they're just frustrated with, the dev process being messy, but being publicly messy. I think more realistically, it's probably a combination of those two things. Then next up, Telltale Games, which closed in June last year at the cost of more than 250 jobs, is set to be revived after being purchased by a company known as LCG Entertainment. Now, LCG, an apparently rather mysterious entity about whom little is known, has announced that it will sell some of Telltale's historic back catalogue, while then moving forward with new projects involving Telltale-related assets, as well as creating entirely new licenses. While the new Telltale certainly seems to want to be ambitious in moving forward, a question on a lot of fans' minds is what's due to happen to those projects that were abandoned last year during the shuttering, such as those being related to Borderlands, Game of Thrones, and Guardians of the Galaxy. The heads of the new Telltale have stated that they're currently evaluating how to progress forward with the previous licenses, but that it is possible that they'll aim to pick up some of the existing stories where they let off. Now, this means that fans of the Telltale games will have to just continue to await the fate of the properties like Batman or The Wolf Among Us, but unfortunately it looks like a number of the other licenses are not going to be revived along with this new Telltale. So, The Walking Dead, that's one such franchise, with of course a deal being struck with Skybound Entertainment to finish off the final season following Telltale's initial closure. Then also apparently doomed is the eagerly awaited collaboration with Netflix to bring Stranger Things into the adventure game fold, as the rights for that have since reverted back to Netflix. Now, one of them has also said that the former employees of old Telltale will be offered freelance positions with more permanent roles due to open up in the future. Now, this is a statement that's been met with a lot of skepticism and cynicism by some former employees and fans alike, but the decision to reach out to former employees does at least show a bit of dedication to keeping the old Telltale identity there, and really there's just a lot of business logistics there that, mean that with the information we have, it's kind of hard to draw definitively what's actually going on there. Is it a case of, hey, we're going to whip you in, whip you up a freelance contract, away you go now, and we'll get the proper stuff set up later because it's a new company, or is it, something a little bit more untoward? Right now, it's pretty much impossible to tell. And then next, not to overwhelm you with the hottest of hot takes, but it turns out Astral Chain is actually pretty good, and it seems like a few others have made the same startling realization, because Astral Chain has become the first Platinum Games production to top the UK charts, at least physically. As curious enough as it is that a single console exclusive has topped the UK charts, what's even more curious is that each of the top 4 right now are new IPs. You've got Astral Chain, Platinum Games' beautifully weird and very, very fun to play character action game. That's number 1, followed up by Wreckfest and Men of Medan, and then Remedy Games' Control rounding off at number 4 as of the time of writing. Now, for an industry that's often so focused on, sequels, prequels, remasters, capitalizing on existing IP, it is refreshingly novel to have a healthy crop of new IP topping the bestsellers list. It really goes to show that, as comfortable as a familiar name may be, turns out, gamers actually do want new, unique, inventive experiences. Although that being said, Mario was 5th and GTA is 9th, so in a few ways it is still just business as usual. And then next, an update from Apex Legends. They have a new event called Voidwalker that is due to start this week, and it brings with it a new time-limited mode plus new loot, both free and premium. Now, the new time-limited mode is called Armed and Dangerous. It restricts what's available to the longer and shorter ranged weapons, which pretty much just means sniper rifles and shotguns, and it encourages a lot more player movement by making loot a lot more scarce. The event also brings with it a new double XP weekend, as new as 2 new tiers of free loot, which is unlocked through completing various in-game challenges. Now, of course, there is premium loot, and given the story last week, there's going to be a lot of interest there. So it's available through direct purchase during the event. It's going to be released in 2 different waves during the event, just like some previous events. The developers, Respawn, have also confirmed that the new legendary items will be added to the core pool of unlocks, and that does mean they can be found in the standard Apex packs, and they can be made with crafting resources or be unlocked through a direct purchase, which seems at least a little bit more fair and less manipulative than the previous event. Of course, it's not been an easy few weeks for Apex Legends. The game has experienced a lot. There was backlash to the cosmetics pricing, and then, of course, sections of its player base being insulted by some members of its development team, which was a pretty ridiculous thing to have happen. This Voidwalker event may provide the opportunity for Apex Legends to take a step in the right direction, and at the very least, it's hopefully not going to end up in an embarrassing bout of mudslinging on Reddit, which would be kind of nice to not have happen. And then next, the CD Projekt Red enters the final push towards the completion of Cyberpunk 2077. It seems that, well, there's just news happening about this game really every couple of minutes, so here's our big roundup of that. The developers have confirmed that the adventure will be entirely in first person, save a few small sections of cutscenes. And while this may not be the most groundbreaking piece of news, it does reflect CD Projekt Red's dedication to creating an absorbing experience with this game, and the developers said that the decision was just made with the aim of increasing immersion and facilitating storytelling, and really being a massive fan of the likes of, say, Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. I love it when a game can be almost entirely first person. I'm very happy with that. Now, to this end, they put a lot of emphasis on the character customization mechanics. The goal is to allow players to make a character that's truly theirs to be immersed in, and the team at CD Projekt Red have specifically enabled this through the inclusion of the ability to specifically choose your voices and body types. So basically, they're going really deep into the character creation to basically just, if you want to go like with a pretty bog standard character, you can. If you really want to go into the transhumanism elements of the cyberpunk genre, you also can. And given it's Cyberpunk 2077, I think that makes a lot of sense. Of course, that's not all that's going on in CD Projekt Red land, though, because they've also confirmed through their financial report that they're moving on to a dual franchise model. This, in turn, confirms that we do indeed have more games coming in both The Witcher and Cyberpunk universes. Now, speaking of The Witcher, the financial report actually revealed that sales of Witcher 3 Wild Hunt have remained steady from last year, with the reasoning being there that new audiences have been attracted to the legacy series through the promotion of Cyberpunk 2077, as well as the incoming Netflix show. Of course, we still don't know exactly what CD Projekt Red have in store for us beyond Cyberpunk 2077, but it's clearly going to be something with Witcher and then maybe something with Cyberpunk again, which overall I think would be pretty good. They're two super solid IPs, and CD Projekt Red seem to just really have their heads screwed on with how to realize those worlds. And then next, let's try a new segment for our Tuesday Roundups, upcoming titles. There's so many games, so little time. September is a huge month for releases, and well, it's kicking off big and pretty much staying big till the end. Catherine Full Body Edition releases today on the PS4. Altus's remake of their 2011 dating/block pushing extravaganza introduces new characters, new plot elements, improved gameplay options, enhanced visuals, and presumably a whole host of new ways for Vincent to bumble himself to the moon and back, as well as a pretty wild collector's edition. Also releasing today is Children of Morta, a highly anticipated story-driven RPG from the team at Dead Mage. It's got beautiful pixel art visuals, an atmospheric soundtrack, seemingly great thematic depth, and 200,000 Steam wishlisters have let their excitement for that game known. It hits PC today and will arrive in PS4 and Xbox One, then Nintendo Switch as well in October. And then next up, in what's sure to be a successful move, Spyro Reignited Trilogy has released on PC and Switch. That's a series that's extremely close to my heart, so I'll absolutely be picking that up. Probably in PC to see just how gorgeous it'll look. So yeah, there's that. And look, it's essentially the perfect remaster. The original console versions of the remaster sold incredibly well, and I imagine this one will as well. Then staying with the retro but not anymore retro theme, River City Girls is the hotly anticipated Streets of Rage-esque brawler that's releasing Thursday for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, and it seems to have garnered quite a lot of excitement indeed. And then rounding off our big releases for this week, we've got Monster Hunter World Iceborne, the DLC for Capcom's record-breaking behemoth, Monster Hunter World. Now, since its release last year, the base game sold nearly 8 million copies, which is not only more than any previous Monster Hunter game, but is also beating every Resident Evil game. Iceborne is boasting a huge new playable world, more monsters, more quests, a lot more challenges for even the most experienced players, and essentially is just a lot more, seemingly really a lot more, of a game that a lot of people love. The expansion hits PS4 and Xbox on Friday, with a Steam version to follow up next year. So there you go, that's it for another edition of the Roundup. Of course, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the show and want to support us. Let me know what you thought of all the stories we covered below. There'll be another video for you to watch, well, in this box that will appear up on your screen. And with that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.